All right. Okay, then. Welcome to the January 5th, 2026 meeting of the Southborough Historical Commission. I will call the meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. with apologies for the late start. And noting that beside myself, we have in attendance Vice Chair Grant Farrington, Treasurer Annie Pfaff, and member Michelle on the move Hokinson, hustling to get home so we can take care of some town business. Um, So the first things we have on the agenda are a couple of items under the demolition delay bylaw, and they're both at that initial step where we have to make a determination as to the structure's architectural and/or historical significance. So the first one we have is 173 Southfield Road, and this is actually um, a fairly, um, on the one hand, complicated and perhaps on the other simple matter. I know I sent out to you all, I believe, because this is the application here is for demolition only. The applicant, who is Steve Brule, he is of Welland Construction, and the homeowner here is Martin Holmes, um, who is actually at this point lives out of state, and I believe has owned this property since 1958. It was used as a rental home, and now he proposes simply to demolish it. It's on a, and we'll get into this, but it's on a very odd and rather small lot, um, quite problematic. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. But so consequently, because there's no um, plan to build anything on the lot, they want to leave the land open. And it's a very small parcel. It's about 0.12 acres, I believe, about 5,000 square feet. So that's quite small. Um, there was really nothing to send you except the address when you could go and, you know, look at the property on, Google Maps or drive by it. And there is a Macris report for this property. I believe it's I'm going to pull this up myself. It was SBR 10.107. And it's also simply mentioned in the Southfield area report, but there's absolutely no further commentary on the house. The house is known as in the Macris as Tyler House, again at 173 Southville. It's funny, typical of some of the Macris reports, there's some contradictory information because the typed cover sheet has it as circa 1890. FYI, Patriot Properties has it as 1900, but the handwritten Macris report, which goes back to 1971, um, indicates that it's pre-1870. And I have an email from the son of the owner who actually lives on the adjacent parcel, which is in fact in Westboro, because 173 Southville is the very last house. As if you were driving on Southville Road going westbound, it is the very last house on the right before you hit the Westboro line. So actually, the gentleman who's the son of the owner, which is the son is James Holmes, who's I've had some correspondence with, um, lives on the adjacent property in Westboro, and that there it's called, of course, Flanders Road, and that's a 1970s era split level on a much larger parcel. I think believe that parcel is over acre and a quarter, acre and a half, or something like that. Um, so again, like I said, there is an individual Macros report for this property. It doesn't say much. Um, this is a vernacular structure. What it's listed as on the macro support as having no style. And we had this conversation before that just because the macros calls it no style doesn't mean it's without any merit. But there's no particular architectural style here. It's a vernacular building, um, gable-ended structure. It's been heavily, heavily altered. That I can tell you. There's a Originally, this house was most likely, and I've been out to see it at the invitation of the applicant. Um, and what I can tell you is that it's oh, I lost my screen for a second. There you go. Uh, it originally was, of course, there's no indoor plumbing when this house was built. Um, Originally just two rooms. And where I was unclear whether or not there was even a stair case to the second floor, or perhaps just a ladder access. And at some point, it was dormered in the front. And I can bring up the street view of this for you folks if it would help. Hang on one second. Oh boy, they're constantly changing the layout of of Zoom, and it really is flummoxing here. Where we go? I can't find the screen share.
I have it up if you want me to do it, Kevin.
Yeah, can you bring it up? That is bizarre. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Sorry about that, folks. There
Nice.
it is.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so it was, that dormer you see, it originally was just two rooms. On the right, as you see it now, was the kitchen, sort of eating area, runs front to back. And then on the left of the front door there on the first floor, it's a living room. And at some point, whether it was a staircase or just a ladder access to what would have been a very low ceilinged and narrow attic, it was dormered out so that there was also a bedroom on the right, a bedroom on the left, and that center window over the front door allowed for the building of a quite small bathroom. And that's it. And then in the background, if you're able to move maybe to the right a little bit down the road and then kind of look back at the house, yeah, you get a good little glimpse there of there's a kind of shed addition right where that door is off the back, and it amounts to a species of entryway, sunroom, mud area. And that's the extent of the house. Um, I'm so sorry. I'm really struggling here to find where they've hidden the screen share because I think I need to get my own screen up here at some point. Grant, where are you seeing that?
Let me stop it. Next to the raise hand button.
Oh, yeah. Good grief.
Mhm.
So sorry. It's somehow that, and this is a new machine for me, so it's a little bit. I'm getting all kinds of sorry.
Is there anything I can share, Kevin? Or do you have
Uh,
additional
yeah, I'm
documents?
just having a little bit of a struggle here right now because it doesn't want to allow me to. Let me try this one more time. There we go. I think I've got it. Yeah, okay. Um, can you see that now?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the house. And I will say that this particular view of it on a summer day with things in bloom is more flattering than the house than this particular structure actually is. Um, Here's what I would say about it. We don't have any documentary evidence of any kind of historical connection with this house. Um, we don't have uh, much in the way here of, or anything, frankly, in the way of architectural distinction. And for me, just to be honest with you, I think this is one where um, old is not necessarily historic, in my view. Um, one of the things that's interesting about the Macros report, if I'll bring this up for you, is that it says, this is kind of funny. It says the only thing it says about this structure, and by the way, this is all right now, those are asbestos um, shingles on this piece, and they're going to have to really, work at some expense to get them off safely and all that kind of stuff. Um, There was a there you see there is a in this photo there's a chimney. This is 2023, um, just to vent the furnace, but the fireplace is gone. Um, and inside this building, there's really, I must say, there's sort of nothing distinguishing about it whatsoever. There's really it's low ceilinged, um, and there's just kind of no there there. But in the Macros report, it notes that um, incorrectly that the dormers front and back. There's only the front dormer. Again, that was made for two small bedrooms in the bathroom. In the back, there's simply that kind of shed attachment. Um, and it says, interestingly, the only comments on this particular structure are that the current owner bought it in 1958. That's um, Martin Holmes, who owns it presently. An attached barn was removed, the fireplaces were removed, and it notes cedar logs hand hewn in floors. And when I was reading that later on, I sort of chuckled a little bit because I'll show you a couple photos that I took on when I saw the place at the invitation of the applicant, and those are the those are the um, floor joists in the basement that are complete. They are indeed um, hand-hewn logs, completely eaten through by either some sort of beetle or um, termites. It doesn't look like carpenter ant damage to me, but they're really quite um, compromised.
Kevin, I'm still looking at the house. Did
Oh, I'm
you?
sorry. Maybe I'm sharing the wrong. You still got a picture of the house?
Yeah, the Google Street View, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me attempt to get this correct with my apologies. Uh, right. How's that? Are
Yeah.
you getting that?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that's for instance, the beam in the floor. And boy, am I struggling to get this to move. Can you see that?
Yep.
That's another photo. I don't know. There we go. Is that better? So there's just really quite incredible damage. That's that back entryway. That's sort of it's a kind of a dog trot mud room in the back. Kitchen. It's quite low ceilinged. That's a sort of living room area, floor. That square you see there was where there was a grate allowing, heat to come up from a furnace in the basement. Another view of the same area. Same area. I'm sorry, that's one of the bedrooms upstairs, the bathroom, and the other bedroom. And one thing you'll notice about the condition of this building, um, take a look at the where the floor meets the wall in that photo, and you see there's like a electrical outlet and a telephone junction box right there. And you notice how that's the center of the room, that the floor has declined. That's roughly an inch and a half over the space of about 3 feet. Um, right under that telephone junction box is about a 2 inches, I would say, lower than it is 2 or 3 feet to the left or the right. So there's a real, like, very serious condition, sort of sagging problem there. But you are seeing in those photos kind of the extent of it. There's really, it's, you know, it is a building, to my mind, that we don't have any documentary, evidence of the historic nature. It's a old um, vernacular building without any um, distinguishing feature. The other thing that I would just note for people, and at the risk of sounding like I'm doing a lot of advocating here, but I'm just trying to give you the full picture of what I've been able to learn about um, this building. Is if I'm going to go back to my screen here and show you the parcel map on this one. Can you see that? You all seeing it? Okay, so this is Southfield going west toward Westboro. This is the Westboro line, right? And this is the parcel. Here is the house. And you see it's a very odd sliver of a parcel with a portion, very small portion. It's got again, it's a very tiny lot extending into Westboro. This is the driveway, which actually goes right through the parcel of the um, homeowners. And again, the homeowner at this point has retired and lives in out of state. Um, the son of the homeowner lives in the house that's right here, and actually, this is his driveway. So I don't know what the family plans in the long run, but the son's parcel is something like this. Um, as it stands, and I did talk about this with our new building commissioner, that this is an all but unbuildable parcel. It would require all kinds of ZBA exemptions, and I just don't even see how you could do it because you've got the driveway running through it. There was a permanent easement, or I don't know what could be done. But again, the applicant has indicated that there's absolutely no plan to build anything here. The intention is um, uh, that they wanted demolish. Water's been disconnected, oil tank and water heater been removed, electricity's been disconnected, and he simply would like to get the building demolished um, by February so he can have his taxes abated only to be paying for the land. And there again, there's no plan to rebuild here. So, in my view, given the lack of any distinguishing architectural feature whatsoever, the lack of any meaningful historic association, the condition of the building, and the fact that the applicant has no plans to build anything, um, I would be for um, personally, letting, voting know that this is neither historically nor architecturally significant. It is simply old. Um, and wish the applicant hail and farewell and go about your business kind of thing. But at that point, I think and sorry for uh, talking so much about this, but again, I didn't send this information out to you in advance because I didn't want to prejudice your consideration. I just wanted you to look at the macros, look at the building, think your own thoughts. And again, because the Steve Rule, the applicant, the contractor who's going to do this work, and the homeowner's son had reached out to me, asking, various questions, and then ultimately asking me if I would please come and take a look at the building. I did. Um, but I didn't want to, again, sort of prejudice you in advance. But that was my feeling about the building. You can see that there's not much there. Um, and they don't want to do anything to it except get rid of it because I think um, I don't think you can attract the kind of, even as a rental, the kind of tenant that he would want to be dealing with. This is again a retired gentleman who just wants to, I think, doesn't need it and doesn't want to pay the taxes on the building. So with that, Grant, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what others have to say as well, but I think I'm tending to agree with you, Kevin. I think I do have just from a procedural standpoint, or I don't know if it's procedural or not, but I don't like the idea of just demolishing to demolish. And I know that previously, when we were looking at potential changes to the demolition delay bylaw, other towns require, um, essentially replacement of buildings to avoid kind of vacant lots, that kind of thing. In this case, because it's kind of well, I don't know the all the regulations, but what might be an unbuildable lot. I don't know if that's as big, big of a concern, but yeah, I'm tending to agree with you. So
Annie?
Sorry, Kevin, did you call on me?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I am tending towards, the opinion that it's probably not historically or architecturally significant. Um, to your point, it doesn't have a ton of redeeming characteristics, and I'm inclined to kind of just let the homeowner do what they want to do in this situation. Um, I do think the interesting shaped lot, kind of plays into it. It's like, that there's not a whole lot you can do there. They've already demoed the utilities, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing anything with this. It's definitely not inhabitable as it is. So I'm kind of inclined to let the homeowner do what they want to do, get the taxes abated sooner rather than later.
Michelle?
Yes, I tend to agree with the group. I feel that there are not, I mean, maybe no significant attributes historic. Um, and if it's not a buildable lot, I mean, honestly, if I was the owner, I would actually give the land to my son just to have just extra land.
Yeah, and again, I don't know what their plans are, but that seems the logical outcome. I do believe that the parcel directly behind, um, basically directly to the north, is owned by the son. He has the house next door. That's again in Westboro, and the back part of that parcel is actually planted up as a Christmas tree lot in a portion of it. There's conifers um, and then there's a nice stand of birch back there, and it makes sense again that it's only a tenth of an acre, and half of that is implicated in the adjacent property's driveway because which passes right through it, So um, I, I don't know what the outcome is, but I don't. I think for me, this is one where it would simply be inconveniencing the homeowner to no effect because I think that building is going down. regardless, and with no plans. And, one of the things that, just FYI to the group, um, and talking with the building commissioner about this, he said to me, um, and this is just a reminder to everybody what the terms of the DDBL specify, that if someone were to come along and simply demolish without asking permission, what the worst that we can do, in cooperation with the building commissioners, withhold a permit for 2 years, right? So, in other words, you know, um, the way I look at this one is that the applicant, Mr. Holmes and Mr. Brule, homeowner and contractor, have done us the respect of asking for something that, if truly they um, don't intend to build, and I take them at their word, they didn't need to do by coming to us in the first place, if you follow what I'm saying. So,
They still have to come before us
well,
through the demolition process, and the building is
well,
older than 1915.
in other words, well, right, but in other words, if they demolish without going through the process, the penalty is no building permit for 2 years. So, I think again that this building, and a lot of it has to do, that's why I wanted to show you the plot plan and the nature of that plot, and how, as I understand it, we don't get into zoning issues, that's not our bailiwick, but a lot at a minimum of 5,000 square feet, and this is just over that, would be grandfathered in, as potentially rebuildable. However, um, because of the way it's bifurcated by that driveway, to the son's home in Westboro, it's really hard to see how and that was Mark Robideau's feeling as well. It'd be almost impossible for them to do anything, even if they intended to. So, um, yeah, that's all. That's about it. Do you want to take this to a vote? Is there any further discussion on this?
Michelle has a hand raised.
You're muted, Michelle.
Question, and it's not really about this particular property, but the owner is telling you he's not going to rebuild, and I'm not saying anything about this particular owner or this particular piece of property, but what happens in the future if a homeowner demolishes a building, they say they are not going to rebuild, and then they rebuild? Do we just take the homeowner
Well,
as word? I mean,
right. In other words, how do we avoid
good
being
faith.
hornswoggled at some point? And I think frankly, there are no guarantees.
Okay.
But what's compelling to me in this particular case, just to kind of bring all the various loose strands together, you have a building that really, honestly, to me has no distinction. It's not. There's no association with it. In the Southfield report, it's not. It's just inventoried. There's no story behind it. There's no association. There's nothing about the architecture that is distinctive. Having toured the inside of the house, I can tell you I mean, when the floors are sagging a couple inches in a matter of feet, and the floor joists are eaten through, and there's nothing. There's not a single anything in the house when I was looking, I was to say, well, this house has some sort of distinctive element. It has literally nothing. It's low ceilinged and, with all respect, kind of creepy. Um, and so I think, and I get it why, an owner with a lot of that nature just said, look, I'm done. He's retired. I'm done. I don't live here. My son owns the property next door. He's got a nice big property. Why does he want to look at this thing anymore? I don't want to deal with any more tenants. And he wants rid of it. And again, we're not here to formulate public policy in the sense of, well, that's a loss of housing. It's not our decision. We're simply here to decide on the merits of the building. And I just don't see it. So, um, so, so what we would need, I'll make the motion just for the clarity's sake, and we'll take this to a vote. I would move that the Historical Commission determines 173 Southville Road historically and or architecturally significant. First I need a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Michelle. So what that means is, again, if you want to move to the public hearing phase of this, you vote yes. If you want to end it tonight and let them go about their business, you vote no. It's not historically or architecturally significant. So everybody clear on that?
Mm.
So the motion made by me, seconded by Michelle. We'll do roll call vote. Start with Grant.
No.
Annie.
No.
Michelle.
No.
Miller is no. So that would be 0-4. And so the motion does not carry. And the applicant at 173 Southville Road can go about their business. All right. So second one we have is an accessory structure. It's a garage at 15 Lyman Street. This is a house that taking the larger property that, and I see the homeowners among the attendees. So we'll, if she'd like to speak later on, we'll get to you, Kelly. But this is a home that the commission should be familiar with because, and it's not connected. But we did talk about this house last summer, summer of 2024, in connection with the Historic House Sign Program. This is the Charles Newton II house. It's a Queen Anne gable front home built in 1901, 1902. And I remember we had a discussion at length, if you recall, about what should go on the sign with 1901 or 1902. And Annie, what did we settle on? Well, I think it was 1902. One?
I actually don't remember, but
Yeah.
maybe Kelly does. I think O2.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
and we really thought about that and tried to get it, and have a logic behind what we were doing. But in any case, so it's a very beautiful house and beautifully preserved and cared for. And obviously the homeowners are committed to historic preservation. And on the property, I'm going to bring this up again in my screen share and hope this comes out right because I'm really struggling for some reason with the new Zoom interface. Yeah. Okay, so there, can you see it?
Yep.
All right, that's the house. And the house is staying, thankfully. Let's, obviously. What's in question here is the garage and this carport structure, which is listed in the MACRIS as a, house and garage. And it's apparently, circa the same period. And the applicant proposes to, and I presume we can get maybe some firsthand commentary on this because, typical of a garage built of that vintage, I imagine that the covered portion of it, at least for a vehicle, is probably unusable. It would be quite, built for a Model T kind of thing, small and narrow, and may or may not be in some kind of disrepair. But that's it, the garage and this carport. And the proposal is um, to take that down. And I'm just going to close out a couple of windows of things that we're finished with, to take that down and to come back with, here's the plot plan that was submitted with the application showing the existing house. There's the driveway. We were just looking, we're basically in that Google Maps photo. We're sitting about right here, looking up the driveway. And if I am reading this document correctly, the existing garage to be removed, um, which presently looks to be, a good bit, maybe 6 or 7, 8 feet, I don't know, shorter than what they're proposing, which would go back further into the property, a 26 by 28 two-car garage. So that's essentially what we're looking at. And I think let me see if I had other, yeah, just for some context, are you seeing that now? This is the macros. Yeah, this
No,
is no,
no, we're not seeing the macros.
I'm sorry. Let me try that again. I have to change my share if I can get it. Uh, okay, here we go. It's all working very differently these days now for me than it used to. Can you see that now?
Hmm.
I just lost it myself.
The zoom is interesting, but we can see it.
I'm gonna try to. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the macro, and there's actually an error in this macro support I noticed. Um, yeah, let me get this. Yeah, they say Charles Lyman House. That's incorrect. It's Charles Newton second house at 15 Lyman Street. Early 20th century porch, Tuscan colonnade, solid shingle parapet. It goes on and on about the particulars of this is talking about the house and not the garage. Um, there's some interesting history here because Charles Newton was both superintendent of the milk department at the Deerfoot Farms Creamery and also held the office of town clerk for a number of years. So, it's a significant house with significant historical association. It's obviously, again, quite beautiful. Um, and I think a very important house in town. There's a mention of Charles H. Newton, second superintendent of the milk department at the creamery, 25 years, built 17 Lyman for his bride, and then within a few years constructed 15 Lyman next door where he and his family moved, renting out number 17 for many years. And of course, again, we're talking about number 15. So there's lots of interesting coverage is the point um, on this particular property. And the question is about the garage. I don't have oftentimes with the applications we'll get a rendering or a of the proposed replacement structure, and I I I take the view, I guess, that I completely understand why the applicant would want to upgrade, a single car garage that has a kind of, that carport attached to it, um, with a fully enclosed two-car garage in roughly the same footprint for the ease of access and convenience and all that stuff. Um, the only thought I had is I wish I'd had a rendering of it because I very much concerned, that it sits harmoniously with the very beautiful existing house. I see that Kelly Siebler has her hand up, and this is the homeowner. So I'm going to, Kelly, bring you over. And
You
um,
guys can hear me?
yes, we can. We'd love to hear what
Okay.
you want to say.
Yeah, sorry you didn't get the rendering sent along. So we are trying to keep the new garage in keeping with the kind of the structure of the house. So the upper part of the house is cedar shingles.
Hmm.
So we're going to have the upper kind of like the triangle at the upper part of the garage be cedar shingles, and then the bottom is like a clapboard. And so we're going to have the bottom part of the garage be clapboard to kind of match that. And then our house also has these like, I'm not using right historical words, but these almost like brackets that are pretty ornate. And
Mhm.
we want to try to match that on the garage. So we're also going to have brackets along like kind of the roof line to match what's at the house. And then all the colors and everything will be the same as the house. And it was hard to tell from the picture, but the current kind of garage slash carport is 20 feet deep and 24 feet wide. So we were hoping we could have saved it, but it's really like it's completely in disrepair. And then also the foundation doesn't go deep enough. So our contractors are kind of like, we have to tear it down to like make it up to code and make it, something that will last. So while we're doing that, we're also widening it by 2 feet, but not um like towards anyone else's property. It's going this towards the center of our property, the 2 feet, and then it will be 6 feet or 8 feet deeper, 28 deep, I think. So that's kind of the background on the garage.
Interesting. And I would point out to the members of the commission that the existing garage, in fact, does not have a lot of ornamentation on it, at least that I can see. So I think that you're in a situation where you're not likely to. I think if you're Kelly, if you're planning to side it with um, cedar shakes, did you say?
Yeah, on the upper section.
Yeah, and then try to mimic some of the brackets and so
Yeah,
on. I think it would, what you're likely to get is going to look better. And
that's the hope.
yeah, maybe more in keeping than the existing structure. So um yeah, that's really heartening, and I appreciate it. Um Maybe we'll go back and Kelly, just I'll bring your hand down for now so you can raise it. Oh, there you go. So you can raise it again, please, if you got something else you want to say. Um, and we'll just maybe chat a little more amongst ourselves for a moment. So just again, Kelly, just raise your hand again if you want to add anything. Um, so group, you know, I think for me, with the history here and what I just heard, um, this is another one that I'm not in fa personally not in favor of dragging out. I think that this is a good faith, this is an accessory structure, a garage. Um, I get entirely. Um, I live in a house that had a small one-car garage replaced by the previous owner um, because it was too small, built in 1912 and unusable for present day vehicles. So I completely get it. And I think again, this is one where I'd like to personally move this along as quickly as we can, especially knowing that there's the intention to um, and again, knowing that the homeowners, given even the house sign, are committed obviously to their quite glorious historic home, and to put up a garage that's going to not be some monstrosity that clashes with what's there. So what we would have to do then is again sort of vote if you all wanted to move on now, bring up a similar kind of motion to the last time and then vote it not the garage itself. We're not talking about the house. The garage, not historically or architecturally significant. The garage is actually quite plain. Um, do you need to see that street view picture again or anything? And it's just it's an unornamented building so far as I can tell now. It's painted very nicely, the detailing on the paint, the garage doors and stuff, but that's not structural. Um, so I have a feeling that what will go back will look better than what's there now, even though it's in some ways a loss. I think it's one of those things that reminds me of what we did. Um, Trying to remember that house where the sunroom was going back, coming off for a two-car garage. You know the one I'm talking about, Michelle? Um, and it makes the building viable for the next 100 years kind of thing, to allow a homeowner to put this kind of amenity on it. So Grant, go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so first I just want to thank the applicant for being here and for providing just some of the kind of history behind the project. Um, I do view the structure as historically significant. I think the styles is matching the main house and they complement each other well. And so I do really appreciate the intention to kind of replace it with a similar style. And I think that would be great if it reaches the point of demolition. But um, I'm of the mind that trying to save what's there is preferred before going down that route. So if that's not possible, it's not possible, obviously. But um, I think there is a difference between like historic preservation of what's there versus recreation. And even if like, I don't think it's our job necessarily to comment on the aesthetics of what might replace it. I think we have to kind of evaluate the structure that's before us. And for me anyway, it appears to be historically significant, even though it's small. And we've gotten quite a few of these outbuildings previously, and I know that people don't may not value them as much as a house, but I do think it is in keeping with the style of the main house. So I would be in favor of determining it to be architecturally or historically significant and moving forward with a hearing within, what is it, 45 days. So.
Yes. Annie?
I am going to disagree with Grant. I don't particularly think that it is historically and or architecturally significant. Even though it is an older structure, I personally don't think it's historically significant. I personally don't find that there are any qualities that really are compelling. To me, it seems like the second kind of bay was like an afterthought that, that part seems to be deteriorating. Kelly had mentioned that there are structural issues, that are really preventing it from, being used at all. I haven't seen the inside of it myself, to try to evaluate that at all. But my vote, when we get to it tonight, would be that it's not historically or architecturally significant.
One thing I would just throw in on Annie's point is that given the elevation that you see in this view of it, I, and that roof line, I just don't see how that um, um, carport structure is original to that. I mean, it seems very clear that originally that was just a one-car garage, and so it's got this kind of sore thumb carport added on. Everybody moves up and gets the second car and 1922 kind of for whatever it was, and then they want to cover it. And this was I kind of with Annie that was likely a tack on sort of
Mhm.
affair. So you're really probably only talking about this. Um, but Michelle, go ahead.
So I'm sort of in between here. I personally think that the garage itself is historically significant. However, after listening to Kelly and, telling us what she's going to do, I kind of feel that, yeah, that it's probably the right thing to allow the homeowner to renovate or to recreate something that will be significant, will be will go with the house, and it's not going to be an eyesore. It's not like they're building a three-story in-law apartment or anything like that on top of it. I think, I mean, it's kind of hard because you can see the one-car garage. I mean, it is kind of cute, but the carport definitely was an add-on. Kind of on the fence here.
Yeah, I looked at the thing and I had the same initial reaction. I looked at the street view, the thing I've had up a couple times, and I said, "Oh, that's adorable." Like, just don't mess with it kind of thing. But then, you think about it for 5 minutes and you think, yeah, I get it. One bay is completely open, the other one's got to be really narrow. They didn't build them garages, back in the day to accommodate somebody's, mini SUV kind of thing. And yeah, this is
But
one
she
where,
also did say that it was deteriorating.
right, yeah, which is no surprise. I mean, that's pretty typical. The garage is the last thing that gets people's attention.
So
Um,
I'll just offer the perspective or add the perspective here that this is a homeowner who is conscientious about historic preservation. They, have a beautiful, Victorian style house. They are in our historic house sign program. They care. And, they, in terms of this project, they've hired an architect. They've, done the surveys. They are doing this project. And, I think that they are going to do it in a responsible way. And I know this is not officially the vote in front of us tonight. We're only voting on whether it's historically or architecturally significant, but I don't feel like this is a situation where we should hold them up because whether it's, we give the okay now or in 9 months, they are doing this project. So I don't know. I'm typically generally of the mindset that, what good is it going to do if we continue to hold them up? That's just my perspective.
yeah, fair enough. Is there any
Yeah.
further discussion on this? Go ahead, Grant.
Oh, that wasn't me. But
Oh,
I will just note that I think at the juncture that we're at now is that I don't view it as by determining it to be, if we think it's historically significant, I don't think that's really holding up that much because it goes to the hearing. And then at that point, we would determine whether or not to delay it. So I don't view that. I mean, obviously, if we determine to delay it, that's the significant delay of 9 months. Um, but if we're on the fence or thinking that it might be significant, then I think maybe the hearing to potentially do a site visit as a commission, kind of moving to that next step would be the logical next step for kind of determining whether or not we would want to kind of proceed with a full delay or not. And I think that's why the process was designed like that.
is there any further discussion? Anything, Kelly, you want to add before we maybe move this to a vote?
Nope, that was a good discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. All right, well then, at that, I will make the motion again, just for clarity's sake, that the motion is that the garage slash accessory structure at 15 Lyman Street is historically and or architecturally significant under the terms of the demolition delay bylaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I made the motion, Grant seconded, and again, this is a yes or no vote, obviously. You vote yes if you want to move this to the next step, which is a public hearing within 45 business days. You vote no if you're satisfied tonight and want to allow the homeowner to move along with their project. Everybody got that? Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so roll call vote. Grant,
Yes.
Annie,
No.
Michelle,
No,
Miller is no. So that's going to be 1-3. Motion does not carry. And the applicant can move forward with their project. Good luck, Kelly, and you get a nice garage out of it that looks really good with your house. Um, and thank you for coming. No. Oop, sorry, I hit the wrong button there. So we're all set. So thank you, everybody, and I always feel that it's good when we somehow have a split vote. It's a little robust, um, variation in opinion, which is, I think, healthy. So the historic house sign program, I delivered the sign to the folks at 34 Main Street. That was the Charles L. and Marie E.H. Fairbanks house. Lovely house, just opposite the common there. And the homeowners who are new to town are delighted, as I understand it, with their house. And I look forward to seeing it up. I don't think I've seen it yet. It's not, maybe hasn't been attached yet. Been a little cold. And then the other thing we had was this pending and kind of vexing request at 24 East Main. And unfortunately, I had put Dan on that, and he's not with us tonight. So we're going to have to hold it again, alas. And with my apologies, I'm going to get to the bottom of this one if it kills me. Chair's report, item 5. Items from the Flag School clean out. I helped Michael Wyson of the Southborough Historical Society with some of the final removals of items from the Flag School. And of course, in return, I got a heap of copies of Fences of Stone for us to sell, which I have a quick update on. They're driving me nuts because I said, I think I told you guys, I have now like 400 copies of the doggone thing. And I did recover the Historical Commission's files, such as they are, which are a right royal mess, to be quite honest with you. And we're going to have to spend some time getting some things sorted. Some assorted paperwork and whatnots. But two things of interest that I did get and turned over to the appropriate folks were some very interesting. Michelle knows about this because I assume Michelle's still in your possession. And that would be some dresses, some historic dresses that were used, if I'm not mistaken, from the bicentennial celebration, right, Michelle? Am I forgetting?
that's what the note said.
Yeah,
Bicentennial.
these were historic dresses that were recreated or sewn for children to wear during bicentennial celebrations. So I turned them over to Michelle, our rep on tricentennial, in the devout hope that somehow 100 years after these things had first been used to celebrate Southborough's history, they might be used again, because actually a number of them were in, I think, fairly decent shape. Yes, Michelle? I mean, there weren't
I'm
moths
not
falling out of them.
I'm not sure that they could be worn without any further damage. I think that
Ah,
they're pretty fragile. But
or perhaps even on display. I mean,
well,
yeah,
that's exactly so. I've been tasked with finding a purpose for them for
Mm.
the tricentennial, and that's what I was thinking, to get a mannequin and to put those on for display.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So
So thank
that's
you.
that. And then the other thing that I sort of got in all this stuff was I'm gonna have to I'll bring this up, is these pretty boffo I don't know why there we go. A couple of fire helmets historic Southborough Fire Department helmets. That's one, that's the other. Look at this from the side of that. There's got these brass um, fittings and fixtures on it. That's an eagle on the side. Anyway, so I took those, I don't know if you recall, but um, previously I had turned over some stuff that we recovered when St. Mark's was taking down the old fire station and the Peters School Annex, and I recovered a whole bunch of fire department documents and some artifacts and turned them over to Chief Achilles at the time. And they're on display, some of those items, in the cases right in the lobby of the public safety building. So I reached out to Chief Pantini and offered him these fire helmets, and he was delighted. And I took them down there in early November. And his plan is to, again, display them in those cases. They've got some very nice display cases in the public spaces of the public safety building. And so I'm thrilled to say that that's where they now reside. Um, of the 400 copies of Fences of Stone, more than that, I think, we've sold 10. Um, Andrew Abu, a local realtor, some of you no doubt know, bought a box. Maria Vagnini is another local realtor. Because remember, we were kind of looking at local real estate agents and brokers if they would have interest in buying these to have a stock to give out to clients. And so again, Andrew Abu has bought some, and um, Maria has expressed some interest, and it's just a matter of me finding some time to reach out. 'Cause Annie, I believe, supplied me with a list of people to contact, and so I just haven't done it yet. Um, but we'll try to get that going. But the every $10 helps, and so I think we'll be adding to our donation account in that manner. Opening the
Kevin,
top,
just
yeah.
oh, sorry, just on that, that's good news, obviously. In terms of that, I think we had discussed last time about maybe when giving out the house signs to people, whether or not we wanted to offer that as, I don't know what the cost, I can't remember what the cost was that we kind of agreed on, but
Settled on $10. Yeah.
is that something that we're still interested, like not for, oh, I guess we could do it for previous house signs, but I was just thinking for kind of going forward for new applicants if like they get a house sign approved, if they
Well,
could.
what one interesting element of that is because of that spreadsheet, we've got contact information for a good many of the people, especially since the program was revitalized by us in the last couple of years. Um, we've got that contact information that we could at least I could send out a blanket email and say, you want a copy, and I think we should sell them, frankly. I mean, I'm not trying to be greedy, but um,
Yeah.
or say in the future to people, maybe we update the letter that, or when somebody contacts me, because that's the way it works, right? They want to sign, they email me, they're the commission, and I end up with the email. And we say, well, it's a suggested donation of $75 for the sign. That's what it costs us. Um, but for $85, you get the book too. I think we
Yeah.
get a lot of takers on that. And and then I'll get rid of those 400 copies by the time
That's going to be a slow process,
yeah,
Kevin.
105, I'm still going to be working on the real estate brokers, but yeah, no, good idea. So the Southborough History and Arts Center at Fayetteville Village Hall had I don't know what they would call that. They had a holiday fair, and I forget what they were calling, a preview of their four artist exhibit. It was the wonderful work of Joe Landry, um, Lucia and Warren Prosperi, and Sigrid Niemeyer. Um, that took place on December 6th, and it was in conjunction with, on the second floor, a Christmas fair, a holiday fair kind of thing. And it was fantastic. Um, I don't know if any of the, well, Michelle, you were
Mhm.
there with Ray, and
Yeah.
I saw you. And I don't know if Annie, did you make it? Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
it
I
was
was
awesome.
there. It was fabulous.
It was
Even
packed.
Dottie went and she loved, going around to the different art vendors. It was awesome. And
Yeah.
the building, it was my first time in the building and it's just incredible.
That it really, I was very happy for the society and for Michael because I thought people finally get to see what, you know, all the hullabaloo was about and that it was going to be meaningful for the town. And so it was a terrific event. And I wanted to mention it because, of course, not only did we award the hall, one of our historic house signs, which graces the front door, just to the right of the front door, and I helped put it up. I would know. And but also we've written several letters in support of various grants that the society has sought for funding to complete the hall, one of which so far has been successful, the other of which is in process. So I think we have um, a bit of a hand in trying to help them get where they're going, and they're there now, and it's fantastic. And by the way, there is a full slate of events scheduled for the hall already, and I don't know where they stand in terms of their. I know there was still some little bit of a hanging chads in terms of approvals and occupancy permits and that, and I have no idea where that stuff stands in it because it's not my really my business. Um, but it's looking good, and I'm very pleased. And I just wanted to make mention of that here and encourage people to look at their website because again,
Mhm.
they've got a
Kevin,
full.
can we sell some books at those events?
Well, yeah, I maybe I'll talk to Michael about that. He's got, in fact, I can. Well, just hang on one second. I don't want to belabor this, but let's see if
One
I can
coming
get.
up soon.
Yeah, they've got. Can you see it? Uh,
Hmm.
there's a poetry workshop starting on the 15th, and then this four artists gallery talk and reception, and they're teaching how you grow terrariums and drawing, photography, painting. You see it. I mean, they got stuff going on since scheduled, so I assume um, that the final hurdles in terms of occupancy. They were still waiting on a motherboard for the elevator, for instance. The last I um, spoke with Michael Wison. So but it's looking good, and it's something for people to be proud of. So again, I just wanted to mention it because I think we've had some hand in it, and I hope that we'll be able to do some things together um, going forward with the Fayetteville Hall as the sort of meeting place for some of our events going forward. So it's good news. Um, Rural Cemetery Water Tower project. The money that I was seeking um, to get the study by, done for the condition of the tower, I was seeking $5,000 from the select board. They approved that unanimously on December 2nd. So, and it's been held up, frankly, in December with holiday stuff and uh, people's travel plans. But I'm hoping that we can get that moving very swiftly now that the new year has arrived. But we have been officially granted the money to get that study. So hopefully that'll move things forward. And I'm trying to keep um, our friends over at the Community Preservation Committee fully updated on the progress, or occasionally it's been a lack thereof while we've been stalled trying to get approvals for this and that. Um, so that brings us to members' reports. Michelle, what is there to say from Tricentennial?
Oh, things are moving right along. There's lots of activities planned for the year. Um, as far as the historic end of things, we're still doing our oral history, and I am really trying to reach out now to find out to find more people to participate. We've done 7 interviews, and they've been a lot of fun. Um, so I sent a couple of emails over the weekend, and I'm hoping that somebody replies. Otherwise, I may have to go knock on some doors, because I feel that sometimes the people that I reached out to probably don't read their email very often. Um, and then as far as the voices from the grave, Sally Waters and Deb Constantine, I think that's how you say her name. They have teamed up, and it's going to be a fabulous event. We are now in the process of recruiting actors for the event. So I hope, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm hoping that it moves along. We do have over a year, but lots of things. I mean, so as far as the tricentennial, like I said, the house tour, the parade, um, there, music festival, drone show, lots of stuff happening.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you send us a list or send me a list of the people that you have interviewed
Mhm.
so far?
Yeah.
Because I have some notions about a couple of contenders. I just want to compare it to what's actually been
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, please. I
Uh,
mean, they've been pretty cool people.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Grant, Community Preservation Committee's been busy.
Yeah, I think we've met a couple times since Historical met last. We've been working to finalize the three projects that kind of come to a conclusion for the three projects that we are considering right now. So in our last meeting, we voted to kind of move forward with the housing transfer to the Affordable Housing Trust, which is just like last year's warrant article, except with a smaller amount of money because we transferred most of the housing money out last year. So this is kind of just a supplemental article to that. So the CPC voted to approve that, and then we'll work with them kind of moving forward to finalize the warrant articles ahead of town meeting. The two that are still under consideration are the Historical Commission's Rural Cemetery Water Tower, which really I think the holdup there is the cost and trying to the study which we've talked about previously, and once that's complete, then we can move forward with that. The timing of that, I hope it's not an issue, but it's going to be tight in terms of CPC trying to kind of wrap up and move towards finalizing warrant articles in time for town meeting. So that's something that we'll be watching for. But if obviously if not, then there is talk about potentially pushing it to a special town meeting if needed, that kind of thing. So I think CPC is in support of the project. It's just a question of whether or not we can get the final, uh, especially the cost details, uh, finalized by, I'm not going to say a deadline. I don't know exactly when the deadline is, but soon.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say that I appreciated uh, the indication from the chair of at least some potential for flexibility in terms of the cycles. If, there's some difficulty because it's just been a matter of, like getting that money. It took a long time and then it came at a sort of an awkward moment. Um, so I think there's a lot of good feeling, that for our particular project and a real willingness um, to help us get there. So I'm really appreciative of that group and
Yeah, definitely. I
leadership
think
over there.
they're definitely, we haven't taken a formal vote, but based on all the comments I've seen, they're in support. It's just
Yeah,
kind of finalizing those bits.
yeah, devil's in the details as it always
Yeah.
is. Um,
And then
all
the
right.
final one is the recreation proposal for converting the Fayetteville baseball field, or that park there with the baseball field, to a dog park and splash pad. At the most recent meeting, they proposed scaling back the size of the splash pad by cutting it in half. So they're going to be coming back with future or plans at our future meeting for kind of what that will look like. So, and then I think I don't think they committed to that, but that's they're exploring that option. So we'll be discussing that.
Well, a lot going on in that part of town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Grant. So we're on item 7 here. We're gonna hold the meeting minutes because those aren't ready. Grant's gonna post draft minutes hopefully shortly, right? So
Yes.
we'll keep right with the clerk's office. They are our friends. We want to keep them that way.
Yeah.
Um, other business that may come before us, et cetera, et cetera. There are two very brief things that just after I posted the agenda. I heard on December 29th from Will Warren, representing the Master Plan Implementation Committee, wanting an update on our activities. And, they've got this sort of list of things that we're supposed to be doing. So I did respond to him on the 31st, New Year's Eve afternoon. I was writing up a report telling him, we're working on this and that and where we were at. And he was very pleased with the response. Although it does call to mind the other item I had here was that I did get the call for annual report submissions, like where we say what we did this year. They published that thing sometime in January. Anyway, it was due today. I'm already late with it, but they indicated a little bit of wiggle room and flexibility. So I'm going to get to it tomorrow and get it in. And it brought to mind the fact that in a way, I thought 2025 was a bit of a frustrating year because we've got so many irons in the fire, but they're all in process. You know, the common fence thing is kind of grinding its way through the paperwork stages. We got it approved. That was a big thing, I think, as co-sponsors with Select Board in 2025, but there it sits. And the town wants to see when it's going to get done. We've got the tower I've been beating my head against, for 2 years. We're getting there. We got the Boston and Worcester abutment sign for Parkerville. We've got a plan now. Um, Crystal Roy has been very helpful for that, but that's going to now hang fire till the spring when the ground thaws before it goes in. We've got the sign program that, got kind of really got up ahead of steam and then seemed to flag a little bit in 2025. We're trying to get that moving again. And we've got, we've had, as with tonight, with two issues, we've had, demolition delay activity, a fair amount we had in 2025. But, um, that's a very intangible, it's one of those things where you can only be the Grinch. You don't feel like you're bringing good cheer to people, except, tonight where we managed to get people through the process very quickly. Um, but we still have the issue of, I think, needing to revise the language somewhat and being able to bring it to town meeting at an opportune moment where the winds are with us to get it through. I find the DDBL perfectly workable as is, but not ideal. And I think Grant, I know, feels this way as well, that there's an optimal way, and there's precedent in communities around the Commonwealth to get it better, to get a better version, more tightly worded, more comprehensible to applicants, and also giving us possibly a little bit more leverage. And one of the arguments, I think, for us in trying to work very expeditiously with applicants and in an applicant friendly manner is the more we do that, the better position we put ourselves in when we come back to town meeting. But that's something I want to work on in 2025. So without going further into this, because it's not on the agenda, um, an agenda item for next meeting, I think, I'd really like to talk about a kind of game plan of what we want to get done, because 2025 for me, even though I expended a tremendous amount of energy personally on a lot of things, I feel like we had less to show for our year than in 2024. Um, so, and I'm agreeable, maybe by private conversation with you folks, and then in open session, when we get together, to talk about what you want to get done, because I also want to talk a little bit about the composition of the commission and where we're going with that. We have a vacancy, and clearly we have a need with a quorum of 4 for a 7th body, because tonight even it was, touch and go for a minute, and I was worried that we were going to, you know what I mean, default on these 2 demolition delay things, which, I think you have to go through the process, even though I was personally in favor of letting them both go tonight. So we've got things ahead of us, and I won't belabor it any further, but that's my plan. I think for our next meeting is to try to get a lay of the land and figure out where we're going and how we want to get there together, and really what you guys want to get done. And I know time is for all of us at a premium for all kinds of different reasons, jobs, personal issues, but I hope we can sort of make some progress in that regard, because I want to have meetings where we just waste each other's time, or mostly I waste your time. But anyway, all right. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. Well, it's been so nice to see you for an hour and 29 minutes, but I bet you want to go home, meaning turn off. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Well, clearly Annie and Michelle just want to stay here all night because there's no second.
Yes,
I
I
I
second
will-
the,
Us. Okay, Michelle. Thanks. All right, roll call vote. I'll vote first this time. Aye. Miller's aye. Let's go home. Grant,
Aye.
Annie,
Yes.
Michelle.
yes.
Great.
Was that
Thanks,
our
everyone.
first unanimous vote tonight?
No,
No, we went
Nope.
4-0 on 173
Yeah.
Southville, but
Yeah.
4-0.
All
We're
right.
adjourned. Good night.
United.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone.
Good night.
Appreciate it.
Good night. See you all.
Take care.